Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Bench to Bold. We're so excited today. I'm Alisa.
And I'm Marnie.
Welcome. Welcome, Tiffany. Tiffany and I are former classmates in undergraduate world way many years ago, back at University of North Carolina at Greensboro. And we have Tiffany on today who is going to just jump right in and start with telling us all about who she is. And she totally has some great Bench to Bold moments and stories about her life and about what she's doing now. Hey, Tiffany.
Hi, thank you all for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
So let me just share a little bit about myself. In my professional world, I am known as Dr. Tiffany Hall. I have 3 degrees in social work. As you said, we were classmates at UNCG in the social work department. And I went on from there to receive my master's in social work at the University of South Carolina. And later in life, I went on to receive my doctorate in social work from the University of Kentucky, where my research focus was on suicide loss survivors, how we deal with trauma, how we help folks along their healing journey, and just how we as a community address those who've lost a loved one to suicide, and also how we address those that are struggling with their mental health. I'm a clinician here in North Carolina. I'm also an educator and community advocate who works to help reduce the stigma surrounding mental health.
So, and you're back at University of North Carolina at Greensboro, correct?
Yes.
In the social work department?
Yes.
That's so exciting. What are you teaching at?
So right now I'm working with our master's students in their practicum, and also helping them with their clinical skills and just how they address those who may be struggling with mental health. You know, mental health is something that affects every single one of us, whether we talk about it or not. And we're seeing more people start to open up about their mental health. And that's a huge, huge, powerful step in the right direction. We also want those who are going out into the field, who are also going out working with our community to know how to appropriately address and support those who are reaching out for help.
We've seen such an increase in that since COVID. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, you know, being mentally well is something that we were never really taught how to do. You know, we were taught about our physical health, what we needed to do to stay strong and stay healthy, but we never really talked about our mental health. And we all have mental health. I like to say to folks, you know, if you have a brain, then that means that you have mental health. And if you have mental health, then we need to actively work to stay mentally well. I think what COVID showed us during that time, especially when we were in isolation and in lockdown and people had, schools were not in and people were homeschooling their kids, they were working from home, or their companies had completely shut down, whatever it may have been, we lost that connection to other folks. And we saw through just the changes in our society during that time that mental health was something that we really needed to focus on.
It's really, obviously, Tiffany, thank you for being able to educate people on mental wellness, mental health, some of the things. We reach a pretty wide audience, so I don't want to have you some basic tips. How about this? Just some basic tips that would be useful as a baseline for people to feel better about themselves or to check in with themselves for their mental wellness.
Sure. First, when we talk about being mentally well, we need to recognize that it's not about just my day is sunshine and roses and everything is going well, because we know that life is going to have its ups and downs, regardless of who you are, regardless of your socioeconomic status. Things are going to happen. And we need to learn, healthy ways to cope, how to deal with things and just how to better help ourselves. So when you talk about tips in, being mentally well, how you talk to yourself is super, super important. That interpersonal communication, the things that you are saying to yourself. Are you giving yourself time to really look at situations? Are you blaming yourself for everything, any and everything? Do you have supports around you? Who are those people that can really help support you through the tough times? Because sometimes we need a person that can help distract us from what's going on. That person you call or reach out to that can make you laugh. And then sometimes we need that person who can really be there for us to just sit and listen without judgment. I always ask folks when they call to talk or when I see them in person, hey, what are we doing? Are we venting or are we problem solving? Because sometimes we just really need to vent to get it out. Taking those moments to pause, to really pause throughout your day, deep breathing, just hand over heart and just taking in some deep breaths, even with your eyes closed or your eyes open, can really help slow your mind down where you can adequately think. Because a lot of times when folks are in mental health crisis, they have tunnel vision, and they don't see the options or they're not, open to listening to options because they're just looking at what's coming right at them, what's at the end. We all played with that kaleidoscope when we were little. And if you were like me and broke yours or lost it, you kind of got the paper towel roll or the toilet paper roll and looked through it. But when we did that, it prevented us from seeing everything that was around us and just had us focused on that situation. So really knowing your supports, knowing who to reach out to, and being okay with not being okay, because there is help out there. We just need to find that what's right for us, because what works for someone else may not work for the next person.
I love what you said about giving yourself and giving the person that you're communicating with options. Are we venting or are we problem solving? Because they're very different. I know that with my children, whenever faced with something like that, I'm always immediately problem solving for them or trying to problem solve. And so that is because that's what I want to do is I want to help them. But giving them the choice or giving my friends or giving myself the choice of being like, do I just need to vent about this for 5 minutes and then like an egg timer, just tell myself to quit it enough, like knock it off and then move right on? Or do I need to problem solve? Because it really does make you readjust the way that you're going to be thinking about whatever it is that has stepped into our viewpoint.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice.
We need to think about it like this. Just like we take care of our bodies, we make that time for that workout session, the afternoon walk. We have to take care of our minds as well. And one of the great ways of taking care of your mind is by reaching out and finding that support. Most of the time we wait until we're in crisis to reach out to a therapist or a psychiatrist. We wait till things like really bubble over, and you don't need to wait until you're in those situations to reach out for help. Having an impartial person that's not going to judge you, that can sit with you and help you work through things is important. It's like that preventative care. And that care comes in all shapes and forms, from talk therapy, virtual therapy, support groups, walk and talk therapy, things like yoga, mindfulness, which people can do on their own, just a wide array of things that are services, I should say, that are available for folks. But we we can't reach out for those if we're not open to saying, hey, I think I need to talk to someone. I think I need some help. You know, talking with my loved ones isn't the only thing that I need. I might need a step up.
Do you ever talk to your clients or your students about meditation? Because there's so much great research out there on meditation. You talked about deep breathing, but do you actually talk about meditation and taking that quiet time, whether it be 1 minute or 5 minutes or,
Yeah, meditation is great, and it really does work in helping calm your nervous system. Here's the thing. When we think about meditating, and you'll hear people say, "Oh, I can't do that. I can't sit in silence and do that." Okay, that does not work for you. Some people need to move. Some people need to sway. Think about how you soothe yourself as a kid. If you watch your toddlers or young adolescents, what do when they're figuring something out? They're typically rocking, right? They're rocking. They may be tapping, humming. Humming can help calm our nervous system. All of those things that we used to do when we were a kid, trying to do our work or on the swings, and just that movement can help calm someone's nervous system. So when I talk to people about meditation, if I get someone that's like, hey, I just can't sit there, having no noise makes my thoughts louder or makes me more anxious, that tells me that person needs to be active. They need to move. They may even need to listen to some loud music or get some vibration going that can help calm their nervous system. But recognizing what your body needs and being okay with giving yourself that, as long as it's healthy and it's not going to harm you. Let me say that is super important, because again, what works for one person may not work for another person. I can tell you myself, I love float therapy. Have either of you tried that?
No.
Where you get into the sensory deprivation tank and it has the Epsom salt in the water. I love it. It helps relax me. I love massages and things like that. For other people, that just doesn't work for them. So being outside in nature might be what's helpful. Listening to music might be the thing that's helpful. I tell my students and my clients, make you a serotonin playlist. Okay. Serotonin, that's our happy chemical in our brain that our brain makes. Get you music that is upbeat, that makes you smile. Go ahead and create that playlist so that when you might be struggling or your day may not be going that great, pop that in. Well, we don't pop it in anymore, do we? We kind of plug our phone up to the car and press the, press the app and go ahead and go to that playlist, because that can help calm you and can help lift you. It's really about finding what works for you to help you be mentally well.
That's a great point, because, when I think about myself and I think about meditation, it's really hard for me. You know me very well. You've known me for almost 30 years. I don't like to sit still. I'm a very high energetic person. So for me, meditating in silence doesn't work for me. My thing was running, and people would ask to run with me, or do you want a running partner? No, I don't want a running partner. I want to put in my headphones. I want to put in my hip hop or my R&B, whatever I'm feeling like, I want to listen to, and I want to just be free and run. And I know a lot of people that do things like that as opposed to being in quiet time. I was a grief counselor for hospice right out of, college. And I remember this one lady, her therapy was gardening. That was her form of meditation.
Yes. Gardening is great.
Yeah. That was what she liked to do. Another lady that I would have time with in grief counseling, she had muscadine vines, and she would ask me to come and pick muscadines with her. So everybody has their own form of meditation, and it doesn't necessarily have to be that quiet time. Because for me, it was running. I can't do that anymore. I'm I'm too old, and my hips and knees are worn out. So, but yeah, so meditation is great, but it's not something that you have to do in silence.
Yeah. Finding that thing that works for you. But the most important thing is talking about your mental health. Being okay with talking about your mental health the same way you would be in telling a friend like, hey, I have a headache today and I've had this headache for like 5 days. Um, you being able to say, I'm not feeling so well. And as that friend, we're not asking you to be that person's therapist or psychiatrist or any of those things. What we're asking you to do is just create that environment where people feel safe in saying that and encouraging them to reach out to a professional if that's what they need. The more we talk about mental health, the more we make it normal to seek help, just like you would for a broken bone or for flu or any of those things. So really talking about it is that first step.
So Tiffany, what's the difference between mental health and like a temporary grieving a loss or things like that? Because I think that to me, I've recently lost some people, like people that I've loved. And so I think that and I can feel it. And I can feel how it's impacted me and changed me, but I'm not typically a person that is, thankfully struggling with other mental health issues. But I do know that, losing people and having grief in your life puts things on a different dimension.
Yeah. And so when we talk about grieving a loss, something has happened that has caused that your mood to shift, your mindset to shift, and you're going to be processing that. For some people, it may be a short time, and for others, it may be a long time. And usually when someone has a loss, people around them are very careful how they talk to them, right? They're very careful on how they support them and letting them know that they're there. When we think of grief, remember, this grief may involve like waves of sadness up and down. Talk about that grief cycle. It may be positive memories, but typically, again, when people are grieving a loss, they may be surrounded by others who are there to support them and don't have that judgment of how they're expressing their feelings, right? When we talk about those that may be struggling with mental health, typically it's not just an isolated incident of low mood or sadness or even suicidal behavior or self-harming behavior. Those things are ongoing and may be persistent. Even if they get better, that person may go back down. They may have another slump. And so when professionals like myself are looking at diagnosing someone with a mental health issue, we're looking at how long this has been going on, what symptoms have they been having, and we look at all of that criteria before we make a diagnosis. People who are struggling with mental health can also be dealing with grief. So those things can go together. But again, typically grief is that, that mix of emotions following the loss of a person, a pet, even people grieve their jobs. Or when they have to move. Grief can be compounded and can lead to mental health issues, but there is some overlap, but some difference in the two, if that makes sense.
It does. I was reading an article and they were talking about, and maybe you can help explain this to me a little bit. Like when you're struggling with something and whether it's grief or whatever it is, it's like everything is like like the universe or the world is like a tilt at 30%. So doing anything on a typical day, is easy. But now when you're operating at 30%, it's just more exhausting to go through that and to feel like if you're tilted at 30%, how are you going to make coffee when you're on a tilt or whatever? And I think it's so important. I love what you're saying, Tiffany, about communicating and sharing your thoughts with your family and friends and yourself, and giving yourself the opportunity to communicate this. What if somebody, though, isn't a person that has a lot of people to speak with, or doesn't feel or isn't ready to talk to other people? Then what?
Okay. So two things there. First, what you were talking about earlier is capacity versus capability.
Okay.
So our capacity may be different given the day. Our capacity may be less if we're dealing with an illness, or if we're dealing with grief or mental health issues, because that is weighing on us. So we might be, think of your phone, we might be at 50%, when you're, and that's what we have to work off for that day. So everything is going to feel harder. How do we direct that energy? You may hear people use terms like, how many spoons am I carrying? And what can I do with those spoons? So, the first part of your statement or question was about capacity and capability. We may be, capable of a lot, but on any given day, we may not have the capacity to do all of those things. And when we're looking at people who are struggling with their mental health, their capacity may be lower. Okay. So that was the first part. The second part is, what can people do? We have things like the 988 crisis line number. You can reach out to folks on that line, and talk to them. They have resources that they could offer, and they're a supportive service for those who are struggling. You don't have to be in a suicidal crisis to reach out to the 988 line. Know what your local resources are in your area. Who's offering free support groups? You talked about hospice earlier. Hospice has support groups. The local mental health association in your area may have free support groups. I tell anyone, even if you're not a talker, just coming to the group and sitting in that room and hearing how others are dealing with things, how they're addressing their issues, may give you some insight into how you can help yourself, or you may be able to make that connection. Talk with your primary care. A lot of primary care offices have social workers or counselors embedded in their services these days. So even reaching out to your primary care is a great place to start. We're doing a lot better in healthcare overall by asking those risk assessment questions. I was so excited when I went to the dentist the other day and they asked me, did I feel safe at home? Have I been thinking about harming myself? I was like, "Ooh, yes." And she said, "Yes." I said, "Oh, no, not yes to the question. I'm just excited that this is something that you're asking people when you're checking them in, because we never know where a person may be when they're struggling. So asking those questions can open that door, which is all we want. Open that door that gives a person confirmation that, yes, they can talk about what their issues are. But starting with the 988 crisis line would be where I would go if I didn't have anyone personally to talk to.
So switching gears a little bit, there's so many studies going on right now about mental health and social media. Do you have any discussions about that with your clients or your students?
Social media is a great tool because it helps keep us connected with folks around the world. It helps folks explore places that they may never be able to go. So it is a great tool. Like with anything, we need to monitor how much we use it. Social media can give folks a false sense of connectedness. And then when they close that app, put that phone down on their computer, those feelings go away. So as adults, not just our kids, but as adults, we need to watch how often we're on social media, how long we're on there. Are we just doom scrolling? Because that can affect our mental health as well. Making sure that, this doesn't become our life. We're not comparing ourselves to other people, because if we're being honest, most people put the good things on social media, right? You don't see all the work that they had to do to make this home look, glorious. You don't see all the time they spent behind preparing this meal. You just see the final product or a sped up version of what it took to get there. And if we're comparing what we have to others, what other folks are doing, we're going to miss out on the present. We're going to miss out on the good things that are happening in our own lives. And, it's something that we do need to be mindful of.
It's really, social media, and I definitely know that I do this. I might get on social media and be like, oh, look there's people that are pretending to be experts and they probably are not. And then I will, be like, oh, okay, this is what I have to do today, or this is what I need to do, or I need to, follow these rules or something like that. And then I'm like, wait a minute, I have my own come to Jesus conversation. I'm like, no, I'm probably my best advisor in many different areas than somebody who I don't know on social media. But Tiffany, I'm sure that you are probably a super popular party guest, because when people know that you can help them with their mental wellness, I would imagine that nobody wants to see you leave a party. They all are like, oh, invite Tiffany because she's. So that being said, how did you decide that this was a career that you wanted to get into?
Well, I'm not a party guest because of what I do. I'm a party guest because I love to dance. And if you have a little karaoke, that's my thing too. Truth be told, I can only hold about a good 2 notes, but I'm gonna get out there and give it my all. As far as ending up as a social worker in the mental health field, I tell everyone, like, mental health chose me. I didn't necessarily choose it. I started my college career as a history major, and I'm still a lover of history to this day. But then, I started to see, a lot of injustices in this world. We're talking about like the late 90s, when different things were going on. And I transferred from NC State to UNCG, and I met a professor during that commuter student orientation. And I was just telling them about, some of the things that were bothering me, some of the things I wanted to change within our state. And Dr. Hurd was the professor, if you remember her. And she looked at me and she said, excuse me, you should be a social worker. And I was like, I don't want to be a social worker. And she said, well, just take the introductory class, put it on your schedule, and just see what you think. And I did. And 3 degrees later, a couple of licenses later, here I am.
That's a great story.
So some tips that maybe, Tiffany, a couple things about if we get into a moment where, I would say, like, you already mentioned some ways to self-soothe ourselves, but are there things that we can do to maybe prevent things, like before something happens?
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out how to say it. I don't want to say it on camera before something bad happens.
Right.
Like, give us some things.
Are there signs that maybe of like, oh, wait a minute, I'm not that I'm going to fall into the pit of despair, which I think is a technical term, but like, okay, remind myself
some,
to
like, life
have
skills.
discipline, to
Life
not
skills.
go drink or to not do drugs or whatever, because that will help me the next day. So things like that.
Kind of like life skills, right? What do you send your students out here in the world with life skills when they're graduating?
Okay. So first off, we need to be honest with ourselves, honest about what's happening. Um, and most importantly, define your feelings. We grow up with whatever, we learned in our community or within our family that happy is supposed to look like, or sad is supposed to look like, or how we're supposed to feel when certain things happen. And as we get older, that may change a little bit. Being okay with crying, that is your nervous system, your body's way of resetting itself. There are people that cry when they're happy. There are people that cry when they're sad. There are people that cry for no reason, or at least a reason that they don't recognize. And that is all your body's way of like, hey, something's going on. You've either gotten too elevated one way or the other. Let me help you reset. Don't ignore that. Look at what your feelings are telling you.
Kind of like giving ourselves permission. Now I'm over here.
Yes.
Remember what the hell I was going to say.
Look at what your feelings are telling you. Where we often get, if we get very upset, we go with maybe that anger or that shame, whatever comes out of that, that feeling. But how often do we pause to say, okay, why am I feeling ashamed? Or why am I feeling angry? What are those feelings that are behind it? So those types of things. I call it, there's a cognitive behavioral skill called STOP. And when you think about STOP, what it is, and let me remember it correctly. S, stop. Pause and interpret what you're doing. T, take a step back. Kind of remove yourself from the situation if you can. That's where you would take those deep breaths. O, observe. Notice your thoughts, your feelings, any physical sensations. What is your body trying to tell you? And then P, proceed mindfully. Consider all your options, your choices. What would be helpful? Do you need to address this thing right now? Or can it wait until you get yourself into a better mindset? Using that can really help folks as they go about their day. Also, just being honest about how you're feeling. We don't do enough of that. We don't do enough of just being honest that I don't feel okay today. It's not because I'm sick. I didn't hurt myself. Something's just a little off. I don't know what it is. Can't put my finger on it. What do you need? You might need a day of rest. You might need a day to just, what do they call it? Couch rot. Because sometimes doing nothing is doing something. Or you might need to connect with your girlfriends and just spend a day of having fun and getting energetic. You might need those things. And then if you need to go a step further where you need to talk with someone about your issues or seek professional help, give yourself permission to do that and recognize that it's not a weakness. It's actually a strength, and you're helping yourself because you realize, hey, I have done all that I know how to do. Now let me go talk to someone that may be able to help me, look at some other options. I tell folks all the time, I can drive a car and I can put gas in it. Beyond that, I can't do anything else. So I'm not going to go outside and try to fix my tire, open up the hood. I'm not going to do that because I'm not knowledgeable of all those things that need to go in it besides those basic things. I'm going to reach out for help to someone that is knowledgeable about a vehicle. So we should be comfortable enough to be able to say, hey, I have done everything that I know how to do. Let me reach out to someone that can help me address things a little further.
Fantastic. That's great. Thank you, Tiffany. I feel like I'm, like a new woman already. So thank you. I appreciate all your guidance and tips and advice and allowing ourselves to just be okay with, like you would say, not being okay and know that it's going to get better. And the thing is, I think also to take, to know that it's going to be okay.
Thank you, Tiffany, for being on today. We really appreciate your time. I don't know the answer to this, but do you take private clients at this time?
I do.
Okay.
I do. I am in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and I take most major healthcare, most major insurance carriers, and I'm licensed in North Carolina and Illinois. So I do virtual healthcare as well.
Okay. And so how would someone get in touch with you?
So if someone wants to reach out, the best way, honestly, to reach me is by email. And my email is my first name, Tiffany, at nostigmapllc.com. So that's Tiffany at nostigmapllc.com.
Okay. Perfect. Well, thank you again. And we look forward to hearing more from you on maybe more episodes.
Yeah. Thank you, Tiffany. Well, I know that you're probably going to get a lot of emails, I would imagine, from all your great wisdom and advice. And, we're thankful that you were able to join us today to share some moments about, being on the bench and being bold. And you certainly have done that. And, I appreciate you for all that great wisdom. So another great episode, for Bench to Bold. I'm Marnie.
And I'm Alisa.
So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.